If there's one aspect of Fallout 4 that even some of the most critical of Bethesda's offerings can agree was a legitimately good inclusion, it would have to be the radio system. A chance to explore while playing some music and listening to a radio personality who gives news and tips about the wasteland has its own charm. Of course, over the years, we have heard several different radio hosts, with some being better than others. And today, I'll give you my personal, subjective ranking of the Fallout DJs. Now, I was questioning whether I should do a tier rank or a normal list, but in the end, I chose both. There's a number that I think are just as good or bad as each other, but there may be some small thing about them that makes me slightly prefer one or the other. Now, let's begin.
This is Sheng, seller of fine water products, and I guess I'll play the music from now on.
Coming up at the bottom, and the only one who is actually E-ranked, is Sheng Kalowski, voiced by the son of Fallout 3 and 4's lead writer. Sheng is one that most people probably have never even heard actually perform on the radio. Now, most Fallout 4 players certainly met Sheng. He's the purified water peddler. But if Travis is alive, that's about the extent of his character. If Travis dies, Sheng will take over as the radio host, and will use the opportunity to advertise his water.
Here's a strange state of affairs for you folks.
If you're looking for music, you're in the right place. If you're looking for quality bottled water, come see Sheng Kowalski.
But it's just not very great to listen to. It's a shame too, because the idea is actually pretty amusing. Sheng jumping at the opportunity to nag himself some free ad space before Travis's body is even cold. It's something that could have worked out pretty well. But listening to the radio, Sheng sounds pretty confused. Like he's not even sure why he's doing what he's doing. When outside the radio host gig, Sheng sounds confident, cocky, and condescending.
Every drop of water that comes out of that filter is 100% pure. Why is a legitimate businessman like myself always gotta be hassled by city regulation, huh?
It's a health hazard, Sheng.
It's a profit hazard is what I say.
I feel like there's DNA here for a really good radio host setup. I think Sheng turning the radio into his personal ad space is great, but there could have been more to it, such as Sheng using the chance to answer criticisms about his business dealings, bad-mouthing any opponents he has, and complaining about city regulations. Sadly, we only get the ads, and there's not even a lot of them. If nothing else, he creates a good excuse to keep Travis alive. Maybe that's the real reason why he takes over the radio.
Remember, Agatha is with you on those cold nights. Just keep listening to this broadcast and I'll keep you company. It's the least I can do.
So I got a confession. For the longest time, I didn't even know Agatha existed until recently. In nearly every one of my playthroughs, I have totally skipped her character and quest, and by extension, her radio station. Agatha sends you on a quest to grab a violin for her ancestor, and when you deliver it, you get the station. A station at which she plays her own music. Voiced by the late Diana Sal, Agatha's voice is one that many elderly women in Fallout 3 share. Agatha comes across as a sweet, almost grandmotherly personality. She dedicates her pieces of music to the various individuals that she's met across the wasteland, all likely with access to her radio station. And that exclusive club feeling is actually pretty cool, for a few minutes, but generally it all kind of loses its luster pretty fast. Still, it's cool she plays her own music. She's nice, but after you made your rounds listening to her dedications and had your fill of violin playing, there really isn't much left to it.
It's me again, Margaret the technician, talking into the microphone and hoping somebody gives a shit. Enjoy the music.
Also voiced by the late Diana Sal, we have Margaret, the technician. She's a replacement DJ if Three Dog dies.
Margaret here bringing you music. Why just music? Because I'm just a technician and some asshole murdered our DJ. Hooray.
However, I find myself being far more amused by her than Sheng. A lot of that is just due to her lines and her delivery. It just seems like she's ticked off that she has to play music. Not that Three Dog is dead, not exactly that. But she's ticked off that it's now her responsibility to play music and be the DJ. It just makes me laugh, and I really wish she had a lot more lines. If she did, I'd probably rank her a bit higher.
This is Diamond City Radio, and I'm, this is me, Travis. Anyway.
So, Travis, voiced by Brendan Hunt, the Diamond City Radio DJ, has some pretty, shall we say, mixed opinions from the community. To some, Travis is something of a dorkable guy, who occasionally spouts some so awkward as funny lines.
I just broke what I was going to play, so...
To others, he's the epitome of boring, having no charisma whatsoever. For those who dislike him, it's not because of his lack of confidence. Completing his quest and giving him said confidence, the opinion of those who dislike him increase. And for those who did like his awkwardness, well, he just lost what made him endearing for that audience. Don't get me wrong, some actually like confident Travis, and that's fine. That's fine.
That's good to hear, don't you think?
However, I agree that confident Travis is boring. But as far as awkward Travis, I think he makes a far more interesting person to talk to, rather than a radio personality to listen to. I think that's the way to put it. He doesn't have extremely bad lines as a host, and even some of them are actually enjoyable, but compared to someone like Three Dog, he's a bit of a disappointment. Like, as a person, awkward Travis is pretty endearing. As a radio host, neither Travis really excels. Confident Travis is just a bit more dull. Shame too, since I like his questline. I just don't want to get Confident Travis out of it. I was debating ranking them separately, but truth be told, they're side by side. Just one's a hair more entertaining than the other.
Hey friends, Julie here. I wanted to take a second to talk about something important to me. This radio station.
Julie, voiced by Grace Rolick, was brought into 76 through the Wastelanders update to be the host of Appalachia Radio. She's fine. That's really all I can say about her. She's fine. She's not really entertaining, she's just not that bad. Not as boring as Confident Travis, but not as charismatic as those higher on the list. Some say Julie should have a folksy tone and southern accent, and I can see their point, though I'm not entirely sure that would really help her in the long run. Some of her lines are just awkward, like it tries to be quirky or funny, but none of the jokes really land.
Next we've got, wouldn't it be nice? Now, isn't that a phrase we all say in our heads about a dozen times a day?
I don't know, but my final opinion of Julie is, she's fine. Not great, but not terrible.
Sweet America, hello again. This is President Eden. I'd like to have a chat.
Now we're getting to the list of the radio hosts who just ooze charisma. Voiced by Malcolm McDowell, the self-seated presidential AI spits out fabricated tales of old-world patriotism and propaganda. His accent helps sell the corrupt politician feel. His tales can be long-winded fake history about his childhood, or simply dismissing criticism of his ascension to power. He decries his enemies and talks about how great the arrival of the Enclave will be for the capital wasteland. It's all good stuff, but I think more than anything, it's the talents of the voice actor that really sells it. Sometimes, however, I can't help but feel that the Enclave radio was underutilized. There's really only one guy who gets brought in by the propaganda, Nathan from Megaton. No one else really does. Sure, it's nice to see a little payoff when he gets captured and tries to warn the player that they're not who they say they are. But other than that, you'd think that the live broadcast and the iBots constantly playing on loop, there would be a lot more people brought into the Enclave's words, but there's just the one old guy. I assume that broadcasts are more of an Autumn move than an Eden move, since Eden just plans on killing everyone with a hint of mutation anyways. So at times I feel like the broadcasts are a bit of a pointless side addition, but other than that it's pretty great. Eden sits alone at the B rank, because while he's entertaining compared to those like Julie and Travis, he just doesn't quite have the chops of those above him.
What's up, Wastelanders? This is Three Dog Bow Wow, and you're listening to GNR. That's Galaxy News Radio, in case you forgot.
Voiced by Eric Dellums. Three Dog has charisma for days as he leads the vocal charge for the so-called good fight. He's an ideologist and spews his own propaganda with high energy. He's not afraid to share his opinion and will scold or praise a lone wanderer for any of their choices. And some people really enjoy that aspect of his character, feeling the narration of their actions make him incredibly entertaining. Others, however, may feel that the constant barrage of praise or criticism makes for an eye-rolling spill. Three Dog is entertaining. He's full of life, has a great voice for radio, and has a cool factor to him. He may arguably put too much focus on the player, but I also feel he's trying to make a symbol out of the player to use for propaganda. In the end, you're his tool.
Always dazzle them, I always say. Always dazzle them and spread the word.
Now, whether one enjoys that aspect of his character, well, it's up to the individual.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. New Vegas. Thank you very, very much for listening.
Voiced by Mr. Las Vegas himself, Wayne Newton. He's the one most often pitted against Three Dog for the top spot, and for good reason. They're equally charismatic, and what camp you fall to entirely depends on what you like. Do you like high energy? Three Dog is for you. Do you want a voice that will calm you down as it asks your mother out on a date? Mr. New Vegas is the way to go. Mr. New Vegas' style is soft-spoken and relaxed. He doesn't really need to show off how great he is. He knows how great he is. But what really puts me closer to Camp Mr. New Vegas rather than Camp Three Dog probably does come down to the news section more than anything. I will say personally, I'd rather not be the centerpiece of the news. Mind you, I do think after a while it gets pretty jarring. About halfway through the game, you're practically a celebrity. A lot of people recognize you on the streets. So the fact that Mr. New Vegas almost never refers to you other than the beginning of the game is kind of awkward. I guess it depends if you want to be talked about all the time or almost never. Now, you might have noticed that despite how often Mr. New Vegas and Three Dog get pitted against each other for the top spot, I still have 2 more spots on my personal list. Maybe the next 2 really speak about what I enjoy when it comes to radio personalities.
Welcome back, you Tabitha. I have with me best friend Tabitha, who has something important she'd like to share.
Voiced by Fred Tatasciore, Best Friend Tabitha is simply one of the most amusing characters in the entire franchise. The Night can blast her message out to warn humans to stay away, encourage super mutants to show up at her colony, and try, almost futilely she admits, to keep the dum-dums in line. Her dual personification, brought on by the grief and loss of her robotic companion, Rhonda, absolutely makes some of the best comedy in the game. She could bounce witticism and charm off herself. She creates some of the most entertaining lines with her own brand of public service announcements in shows like True Icing Time. But, perhaps above all else, I love her bits of lore that she teaches about the West Coast mutants. But, with a limited range that she can broadcast and a quest to actually stop the signal, it really puts a damper on her station. Which, is pretty jank. Still, Best Friend Tabitha is one of the greatest news hosts in the franchise. There's just one better.
It's RedEye here, running Raider Radio. You love it, and you know it.
I know a lot feel Nuka World is a letdown, especially after Far Harbor. But man, if there's one aspect that is 11 out of 10, it's RedEye, voiced by Andrew W.K., a real-life musician, by the way. RedEye is just one of the most entertaining figures in the entire franchise, arguably better than Tabitha. He's a chronic liar, a great storyteller, and even plays his own music. He gives conflicting accounts about how he got his name, tells some really wild stories about how great he is, tells other almost mythological levels of Bennett legends, and I just can't help but enjoy every bit of it. Seriously. He's like that friend that you had who would make up some crazy stories about something that happened to try to seem cool. But you know it's a load of bull. However, rather than rolling your eyes and wanting to slap your friend upside the head, you're just like, yeah, tell me more. Also, the fact that he can play guitar helps. He actually has a skill. He's entertaining, whether he's simply strumming his guitar to a wild tale or playing a song that he wrote himself, like One Last Score. And you can actually bring Raider Radio out into the Commonwealth, a reverse course of Black Mountain Radio. If there's one thing that could make RedEye better, is more RedEye, more lines. Other than that, I put RedEye at number 1. He's the real deal.
You're all a bunch of psychopaths, and I love you for it.